Killer Queen Conversation.
Hello, and you are very welcome to Killer Queen Conversations, the Queen fan podcast from Shane's Queen site. On this podcast, we will be interviewing Queen fans, asking them about their favourite songs, favourite albums, how Queen became part of their life, and indeed how the music of Queen has formed the soundtrack to their lives. So without further ado, let's see who we have today. So we're in Ballyraggett in Kilkenny in Ireland, and it's Greg Porter. And straight up, I mean, Greg is a friend of mine, and I think it was 4:00 in the day I started putting it on social media that I was going to try a podcast. And I think by 6:30 p.m. the first response came in, and it was yourself, Greg. So thank you very much for taking the plunge and trying out the podcast for the first time. So thank you very, very much for coming on board.
No problem. I mean, in fairness, like, we know each other ourselves. We're huge Queen fans. So I was like, the one thing I did, I really wanted to be first. I was excited. I really wanted to be first.
Thank you very much for being first. Yes. So tell me, like, I mean, what was playing in your house when you were younger? What type of music?
My dad had a very eclectic kind of sense of music. Like, it was a lot of Queen, of Queen. Like, we lived Queen's Greatest Hits 2. Was just on repeat. But a lot of stuff, like, there was Status Quo. You know, he like, you know, Neil Diamond, Christopher.
Same,
you know, a lot of that kind of music. Now, he had, like, you know, he enjoyed other things, like ELO and and a kind of a lot of popular music, because he used to do karaoke and DJing and stuff, and so he kind of had a bit of an eclectic mix, but it was mainly kind of a lot of like 80s anthems, let's say,
the best of the best.
So, exactly. Exactly.
But for me, it was Moody Blues, Neil Diamond, stuff like that. I mean, Glenn Campbell. I mean, I was brought up on Glenn Campbell, so I presume it's very similar for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that, like, Dad, kind of his taste in music kind of changed over the years. Like, when we were kids, we didn't hear much of Glenn Campbell, but it was as we got older, you know, it started to come in the mix. You know, but like there was kind of weird ones. Like, I can't remember the name of the band at this stage, but they've only actually redone a version of it. The one about Rasputin.
That's Boney M.
Rasputin. Boney M. That's it.
That's them.
That was on repeat in the car. Like, we used to, because my family were all originally from Dublin, like my grandparents and all that. So we would probably every second week we drive to Dublin. So there was a playlist on a tape in the car, and it was all those kind of songs. And do you know what I mean? And I've got a brand new combine harvester and this kind of stuff.
I know them from Somerset. I can't remember the name offhand. It'll come back to me maybe during the podcast.
Yeah.
So can you remember the first Queen song you heard?
First Queen song I ever heard was Show Must Go On.
Oh, so it was a later one.
Show Must Go On.
Right.
It was because I suppose it's a weird, well, it mightn't have been Show Must Go On. The first one I remember. Like, I completely remember going, oh my God. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's interesting because it's not an overly complex song. I mean, there's not too many. It's the same riff quite a number of times for the verse and so on. And it's not one of the more complex songs, you know, like Bohemian Rhapsody is like 6-minute epic, but that is an epic in its own right. Yeah.
There's just something about it that just got me straight away. And I remember because Go on, sorry, you were going to say.
No,
I remember because because we I know I've spoken to you about this before, but was it Ultrabox or Ultra? You were used to watch the actual music videos, and they used to just play them over.
That's
and
Lifestyle Video Jukebox. Is that the one?
That's the one.
Yes,
that's the one.
Yeah, where you could ring in and request a
Yeah. And we recorded the actual videos, and that video for that song, I literally would play,
Mm.
rewind, play, rewind, play, and just constantly.
Yeah.
And I still remember probably 90% of it to this day.
It's kind of
And
made up from all the other videos. It's a
it is
mishmash of all the other
exactly,
videos. Yeah, because Freddie would have been quite sick at
exactly.
that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I ended up, it led me down different paths. Like it
Mm.
led me, the one song I always wanted to know what it was, because I thought in the video it was so cool when they're on the top of the, the building in New York, the silver
The
or
Highlander one.
whatever.
Yeah. Princes of the
Yeah, the
Universe.
Highlander one. And that's it. And I was like, what is that? I want to know
Mm.
what that's from. And then I ended up, I was shown, it was on late on telly one night and Dad was watching it. And I ended up watching parts of it and I saw it and I was like, oh my God, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
but we didn't have the internet back then. So you
No.
couldn't search and go, what is this
Yeah.
song? Where,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it took me a while to kind of find it, but everything kind of, a lot of my branches of where I went in Queen were from there. Because I suppose, like, if you think about it, I was 1984, I was born.
Yeah.
So at that stage in 91, I probably would have been what, so 6, 7.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, it's kind of, you're only starting to really,
That's true. Yeah.
realize.
But I
But that
think
would
that's
have
the other
been,
thing. Like when we're growing up, like the formative years, you actually remember the music of a certain era, so you'll gravitate
yeah,
towards music that you're growing up with.
up with exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, that's very important to have those
Mm,
songs in your life, because they do.
yeah,
They're like a soundtrack, and I think everybody, any Queen fans for sure, will have Queen songs that will actually go with their life. Certain songs that will
yeah,
be played, maybe a relationship, maybe that sort of thing. So
oh
like
yeah,
first job or first car or all those things.
yeah,
So I think everybody will have those stories, and hopefully on this podcast journey, we will find other people who will have those songs. Like I'm sure you have songs yourself that will be maybe the first time you heard, the first time you played a song in your own car, that sort of thing.
yeah,
It
oh,
might be Queen, it could
100%.
be something else, but
Yeah.
music plays a very, very important part in everyone's life.
Oh, huge part. Like there's certain songs I cannot listen to anymore because they go with
Mm,
certain times in my life. Do you know what I mean? No, like I went through when I was in secondary school, like I had a tough time and there was kind of a year period where things kind of went a bit belly up for me and I ended up starting to listen to a certain songs and like it's so funny and my dad had and myself had this in common. His song for it would have been it was from Jesus Christ Superstar, What's the Buzz?
okay.
And if he started singing that, my mother would literally turn to him and go, what's wrong? Why are
Mm,
you down? And I went through a stage where I was singing like I'm going slightly mad.
okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think everyone kind of knew that I was just like, oh
Yeah.
no, he's not the best of form.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of those types of songs, I have a kind of a very, shared
Mm,
kind of feeling with them. Um, like for over the last couple of years, one of the like I've gotten into quite a lot of kind of like orchestral music or film music and stuff like that. And there's
yeah. I
there's
think you like
certain
Hans Zimmer. That's
films,
one of your key areas
yeah,
of life.
like
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer,
Yeah.
exactly. But like for me, the biggest one is when I was growing up, like and I still am, and you know this, like into Transformers, and the movie was very kind of it's very like epic, and
Yeah.
it's pure 80s,
Oh, it is nostalgia.
rock
Yeah.
ballads.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was actually done by the guy who did Rocky and Rocky 3 and Rocky 4, Vince DiCola.
Yeah.
So it's all that kind of 80s power ballads. But again, like I that soundtrack gets me through when I'm in a
Mm.
bad way. That gets me
But
through it. Like
I
it's
think
something that I would listen to.
there is a bit of healing. I believe anyway in
Mm.
retro, because I feel
Oh,
whenever
100%.
I'm going through something or if I'm just not feeling the best, if you put on either a retro like Frasier, for example, which is very retro,
Yeah,
or something like Knight Rider or a power
yeah,
ballad from the 80s, it's just one of those things because it brings you back to a time that was maybe simpler. We didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have all this
yeah,
non-stop noise in our lives. I think it brings you back to a simpler time and maybe a
yeah,
calmer time for you when maybe a more carefree time in your life when you're a child and you're just happy,
yeah,
because as you understand, like when you're an adult, things you have everything coming on top of you,
Oh, it's
finances,
struggle.
all those things. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's I think retro is a great way to kind of de-stress for me anyway. I'm not sure if anybody else.
Like even for me now, and it's such a simple thing, and I like, and it's the one reason I've always said I would have loved to have been at Live Aid. Just like if I'm ever in a mood, just the whole the interaction, the AO with Freddie, just it just brightens my day.
One of the
like, it's
most
just something
amazing scenes in the movie for me is the bit where they come in over the crowd and it comes in and approaches the stage, because I think if you had a chance to show that to somebody back in 1985, this is what's going to, this is the movie we're going to create in a few years' time, in 30 years' time, I mean, it's or 40 years' time, whatever it is. I mean, it really shows the scale of it, because it was 72,000 people in the stadium, and God knows, maybe 1 billion people on TV and so on, and probably another billion on YouTube have seen it since,
Oh yeah.
But
like my dad always told, because he watched it and everything, he said it was just he said you couldn't write it, and he did say it to me that day, like he said it to me years on when we talked about it, and he was like, it was so, like, some of the other bands were good, and there was some that were grand, there was some that were shit, but as soon as Queen came on, everyone just went.
Now that's interesting, because my cousin was hugely into Queen, and he was kind of the gateway for Queen for myself. And when Live Aid was on, I remember he had to make sure there was nobody talking, and it was 20 minutes whereby the whole house is quiet. I remember we're looking at it, because I didn't know really who Queen were. I knew that he was into it, because but 2 or 3 years previous, he had purchased Greatest Hits on LP. And I remember him bringing me upstairs and showing me Bohemian Rhapsody, and I was kind of going, wow, that's bad for a start. And then he showed me another one, Fat Bottom Girls. And I think it was just funny because, I think one of the names was Fanny, and it's a funny name over here when you're 8 years old. So, it's one of those things. And I remember him kind of playing me the records and so on. And many years later, then he gave me Queen 2. And he said to me, I think you'll like this. And that was my gateway into Queen. And I kind of went from that point on. But I do remember that day in Hillview in Waterford, and looking at Live Aid, and not knowing that years later I would be a Queen fan, because at that time it wasn't. It's a weird thing. And I think that's the power of the music itself, So what was the first album you got? Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah, you were going to say.
I was going to say, does that mean Bohemian Rhapsody was your first kind of song you remember listening to? Or?
No, the first one I recollect is 84, because my father got me a computer in 84. Even though I asked for a stethoscope for some reason, he got me a computer. But anyway, look, it worked out very well for me anyway. But in 84, it was March 84. Cyndi Lauper's in the charts with Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Again, I love that song. The production on that song is amazing. But Radio Gaga was in the charts, and I remember Radio Gaga distinctly on WLR. It was a pirate station at the time. It's now a legal station here in Waterford, but at the time it's a pirate station playing Radio Gaga. And I remember the synthesizer bass and the way the vocals were done. That was my first recollection of hearing Queen as something that I chose rather than somebody playing something for me, So that was my first one anyway. Yeah.
Oh, great one for it. Because I remember again on the jukebox, because I always was fascinated by the Metropolis, where they changed Fritz it from the robot. Yeah. I always thought that was so real. But actually another one, you mentioned Fat Bottom Girls there. Yeah. This is the so weird funniness. My first recollection of partial and somewhat complete nudity on screen was from the video for that song.
The bicycle race,
bicycle race. Sorry, not Fat Bottom Girls.
That was race, now. There's two versions of that video. Obviously, there's the explicit version and the nice. You couldn't do it these days. Obviously, you wouldn't be allowed to. I think the band would be. But that was the 80s.
That exactly, yeah.
It was the 70s, actually. It was the 70s. Fat Bottom Girls and Bicycle Race was 78.
Yeah.
So, Halfords requested that all the bicycle seats were replaced. So that's a true story.
I well believe it.
Yeah, and as far as I recall, Queen and I think it was Roy Thomas Baker, they couldn't actually come to the shoot because they were doing the tax exile thing because they were paying too much money, and they were in France recording,
jeez.
so they couldn't actually come over and watch the video being done. Much to Roy Thomas Baker's, I think I'm nearly sure it was Roy that actually said that he was disgusted they couldn't come over. But anyway, yeah, I was going to ask you what your first album was. In that case, what was the first one you actually got yourself, apart from one being in the house?
The first one I bought myself was actually Made in Heaven on tape.
Yeah, so that would be around 95.
Yeah, probably 94, 95, yeah. Because again, I was starting to get into the early teenage years.
Yeah.
And I actually remember, because it was so bad. I listened to that album on repeat.
Yeah.
I literally,
it's a
I'm that type
fantastic
of
album.
person. Yeah, it really is. And I'm that type of person. If I get into a song or an album, I will literally listen to it on repeat. And I ended up with that. Like we again, kind of my childhood, a lot of the time we would go to the UK and go to like Pontins or Butlins or whatever. And we used to they'd have all the competitions, like you'd have the karaoke competitions, talent competitions and all that. And I literally remember that when I got the album, they were doing a talent competition, and I went, fuck this, I'm gonna sing my favorite song off the album, which was Too Much Love Will Kill You.
Oh, it's a great song.
And it's an unreal song.
Yeah.
Like
tricky one to do because there's a few high notes in there.
Yeah. Now again, I suppose when I was younger, I suppose I kind of had a bit of a, we haven't confirmed this, right? But when I always had a very high range. I always had that ability to hit notes that like Freddie could hit when I was younger.
Wow. Yeah.
But I actually realized as well, I had 2 extra teeth in the back.
And Freddie had 4, right?
Yeah. Once they were taken out, my range collapsed.
Ah, right. Okay, your power was gone.
Yeah, but what also happened is when I was younger, I got 2 growths removed from my vocal cords.
Oh.
And ever since that, I was able to hit those high notes for the longest time. And I had no problem hitting those notes. Now I can still hit quite a few of them, but there's some I just,
I do remember going to a karaoke thing in Dunmore East with you. I think you did Gold, or was it? I know it wasn't Gold. It was.
I did that one. That was a regular one. Spandau Ballet was.
Yeah, I think I might have done. Yeah, so I did. That was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, my 2 regulars were Anything for Love and Meatloaf and Gold Spandau Ballet. Yeah, so
very good.
They were my 2 regulars. But that was kind of the first album, and that was my first kind of really big hit song. I actually won that talent competition with that one.
Wow.
So I was like, I still actually have the certificate and everything.
Yeah.
But what I was getting to with that is I hadn't, like, obviously because it was kind of a new album and I hadn't learned the words yet, so I was literally singing it with the cassette.
The cassette
holding out, reading the lyrics.
And that's something we don't have anymore. Like when we bought the album,
those days.
You had a little booklet. Like I have the CD of Made in Heaven. I remember the booklet and the words and everything with all the liner notes. But when you have Spotify these days, you don't get that. And I think that's something that the new generation don't get. And I think that's why LPs and cassettes and all that, they're coming back.
They're coming back hugely.
Like vinyl is you have to come way back, and everyone's back into vinyl again, and everyone thought it was gone. So but I remember buying Made in Heaven, and that was the only album that it was ever released by Queen that I was actually ever here. A studio album, obviously, because of it was retrospective, I know, but I do remember the excitement of going down and getting a Queen album on the day it was released. And that's something that, like, obviously unfortunately we can't have anymore. And I would love to be able to go back in time and have that experience of experiencing the Queen album from the very, very get-go of having the album, and that's something that we don't have. Obviously, we have compilations and so on. And I know they're thinking of maybe recording with Adam Lambert, and that might happen. But again, it's not exactly Queen.
It's it's kind of like it's what I would call a proxy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not, the
argument is always there, like, is it Queen or is it not Queen? My point is that it's great that Brian and Roger are keeping it alive for a new generation.
Because
there are a huge generation of fans now I played in Utah there 2 weeks ago, and a lovely girl called Ray came up and she was chatting to me about Queen and so on. I'd say she's about 17, 18, but again, she wasn't alive when Freddie was alive. You know, I mean, it's a brand new generation of people who are coming up and enjoying Queen, which is great. You know, so it's really lovely to see that.
I think for me, what killed me after Freddie died was I don't know why, there was always something about John Deacon for me. Deaky for me always just he kind of felt like the average Joe of the group.
He was. I mean, yeah.
You know, there was something, and when he didn't come back, it almost felt a bit heartbreaking, like that his heart was so broken by losing Freddie that it kind of it was too much.
It was
I think
gut-wrenching.
Yeah, and I think I've always felt that. I always felt his pain, you know, when I've seen them after. And it just, for me, it was like, it's great to see them. And I love watching Brian online. Absolutely love watching Brian.
I love the way he speaks. He has a lovely speaking voice. Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah. But I don't know. For me, I almost always associate it now with that gut-wrenching pain. But like, to be honest with you, like, I'll always have a massive, massive soft spot for Queen. Because like, I even remember, I can tell you the day or the evening, I should say, that it came up on the ITV News that Freddie has passed. I was laying on my mother's bed with my two grannies and we were watching TV, and I remember my parents used to have a big wardrobe, and on top of the wardrobe would be the old style fat TV.
Yeah.
And I remember coming on, and my heart sank.
Yeah.
And this is for what, like a 9, 10-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And my heart just sank, and I'll never forget that. Never forget that feeling. And it's mad to think that someone you've never met, you've never engaged with, but you're still heartbroken.
But that's what I don't understand. Like, I mean, I don't understand how Queen, for me, has come into my life. Whereas I love Elton John, love ABBA, and love all those other, you know, all the other bands who are out there. Def Leppard, for example. You know, I mean, my cousin does sound for Def Leppard for years, and they've been in my life for many years as regards being a band that I love. Animal was one of the first songs I ever heard by them, and it was phenomenal to hear that being played full volume in a disco. But for some reason, the story of Queen, the four members of Queen, they seem to have a personality that seems to be more tangible. So therefore, when Freddie died and when John left, it becomes hard. When Brian had this mini stroke, for example, when he had the heart problems and so on. Yeah. Like it affects you. It does, because I think they seem to be more tangible than other bands, perhaps a bit more distant. You know? Yeah.
They're kind of at that level where they've almost transcended the music and gone above it. And it's very much like I see the same with like someone like Led Zeppelin as well, you know, where you know every member of Led Zeppelin. You're not going to turn around and go, oh, who's that guy? Do you know what I mean? You know straight away. And I think it's the same with that, you know, that it's tricky, and it's tough that things have gone the way they've gone for the band, but at the same token, like there's a massive history there.
They've actually been together now longer without Freddie than they were together with Freddie.
They were exactly. And
would I take it then that John is your favorite member?
John would be my favorite member. Now, look, it's a catch-22, because as someone who loves drumming, I wish it was Roger Taylor. I would love it to be Roger Taylor, but there's something about Deaky for me. Deaky and even when I was younger, before I kind of was getting to know who was who, there was just something about him was just so relatable.
For anybody who doesn't know John's work, I would recommend you listen to "You're My Best Friend" and "Millionaire's Waltz," because if you hear those lines of those bass lines, they are intricate. Even Radio Gaga has a fantastic bass line. You know, all those arpeggios and those little bends and so on. You know.
If you have to go baseline though, you really do have to go Another One Bites the Dust. Like it, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
in
yeah,
fairness,
yeah. I mean, but it's I'm looking at the more subtle ones where you won't
subtle
expect
ones. Yeah,
because that's a
yeah,
bass
yeah.
song. But
God,
I'm
yeah,
trying to
true.
identify songs, and you are right. And if you're going to go Another One Bites the Dust, then you could also go Dragon Attack, which is another
Yeah,
great bass line. You know.
yeah.
So yeah, no,
But the one,
John is
sorry.
great. Go on, you go ahead.
Oh, in fairness, and like a lot of stuff with the band, I suppose because we didn't have internet back in the day, and I didn't have you for the longest time, because I've learned so much more from yourself. Like a lot of my Queen journey has happened later on in
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
Like when I was younger, it was all compilation albums. So
yes.
my whole lifestyle of Queen was
Hmm.
basically those compilations. So now that I'm older and I've made purchases or of the back catalogue and gone, okay, let's have a look at the studio albums, and I found so much more depth that I
Yeah.
didn't realize. Like I think I was saying this to you, I had never heard one of the songs that's been a standout for me over the last year or two that I went, I love that song, is Sail Away Sweet Sister.
Beautiful song. Yeah,
Like
beautiful.
just out of nowhere. Like
Brian May.
um
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And
Which is
even
ironic
the
because he doesn't have a
big
sister.
no, exactly. Yeah, it's just such a random
Yeah.
choice, and it
Yeah.
it seems like a very personal song, but
It does.
yeah.
Yeah.
And even like my I suppose one of my favorite tracks has always been I Want It All.
Hmm.
And then I heard the version of the studio album, and it has that kind of extra instrumental as you're going through, and I
Yes. Yeah.
just went, oh my God, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. But the biggest one for me has been the kind of Magic album has become my holy grail of Queen
Right.
albums at this point. I absolutely adore that album.
Excellent.
And it was one that I'd never listened to as a kid. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, I'd heard some of the songs off it, you know what I mean? And you'd have that were on the compilation album, but you know, I'd
Yeah.
never heard some of that, like even the Who Wants to Live Forever instrumental.
That's just
I
called
just thought
Forever.
was
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Forever, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean,
I just
just for anybody who didn't know the titles,
didn't know the title,
who's
yeah.
listening on. Yeah. Who Wants to Live Forever became Forever as a piano track. And
Forever
I think it
is,
was
yeah,
Freddie actually played that.
he did, yeah. And I like that for me was just, on albums back then, that wasn't really done. Like,
No.
whereas now it's quite regular, but
Yeah.
back then it was unheard of,
That's
really.
true because it
You know?
might seem indulgent, perhaps.
Mm,
Somebody else might have said, "Oh, that's very indulgent. Can it take one track and just replicate it as an instrumental?"
yeah.
But I think it works beautifully, and it
Oh,
gives a different feeling as well to the track.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And like I see it a lot now in the film music. Like one of the big ones was I don't know if you remember, Aerosmith had I Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
They actually turned that into an instrumental and just literally had that they sang the chorus, and then the rest was instrumental.
Very
And
good.
you're seeing that progression of bands going, wow, that's a great idea. Let's
Yeah.
do that. Do you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was the thing I always loved about Queen. Like you could never listen to a Queen song and mistake it for any
No,
other
they have a
band.
unique sound,
Never.
but I
Yeah.
think that's
And
perhaps the fact you have three guys who have good voices. Brian, Roger, and Freddie have different timbres of voice. Brian's
yeah,
guitar is unique. Nobody else has a guitar like it. Nobody else plays
100%.
like it. Okay. Freddie's
No.
voice is unique. Roger has a very deliberate drumming style. Brian
Yeah,
actually said
very.
that when they were hiring a drummer, the reason why he chose Roger back in the 70s for, I think it was Smile, was because Roger said, 1 second while I tune these. And Brian
Yeah.
said, I've never seen a guy tune drums before. And
Tune drums, yeah.
that's, so I mean, so that these guys they know their instruments really well. And obviously John
Yeah.
being so, he's a shy retiring type, but he's a great bassist,
Oh, 100%. And I suppose the fact that he had his kind of electronics, that he was well able to kind of,
True.
he understood things that
Yeah,
bit
that's
more
true.
than, you
I
know,
mean,
a lot of these.
Brian got in guys to try and take the DC amp apart and put it back together, and and try and understand how it worked. It's a
Yeah,
very simple piece of kit, but it works perfectly for all of
yeah,
the Queen, music.
exactly. And that was even with Roger, because like I always, when I was kind of learning drums and stuff and trying to, get into things, and you kind of, you listen to a Queen track and you go, that is a simple beat. And then when you actually break
Mm.
it down and listen to it, you kind of go, yeah, that's clever. That's, it's
Deceptively clever.
easy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
you kind of
yeah,
start to understand.
I think you're right. I think that's exactly it, because even Freddie on the piano, like I
Mm,
learned Nevermore, and I said, oh, now I know how to play Nevermore, and then I listened back and to myself playing it. I was kind of going, that's not exactly right.
yeah,
So let's go back and try and figure out what Freddie's doing. And there's so
yeah,
many things he was doing in that piece that I went, okay, I didn't know. Now, I have to relearn it
yeah,
the way Freddie played it. Play the game, for example. Um,
yeah,
it starts off on that C and then it goes to the B flat. But what's hidden away is that Freddie's playing a really high D on that chord, and you don't hear
yeah,
it until you actually look at sheet music and actually try and play it that way. So there's loads of stuff
yeah.
hidden away, and until you actually try and dissect songs. And I think that's why I
Mm,
love Queen, because that's what I started doing back in the day. I started dissecting the songs and
yeah.
transcribing them. So I got to do exactly what you're saying there, and taking the songs apart and then kind of going, that's not
Parts,
easy.
yeah.
That's not as
No,
easy as it
no.
sounds. Yeah.
And I even found like like I know when we were younger we had a funny one, because we actually we lost our Queen's Greatest Two album, and Dad was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm gonna go out and buy it again.
Yeah.
But what he did was he ended up buying Queen Two and not Queen's Greatest Hits Two. So
Yeah.
no,
I
we
had that
actually
experience gone.
we
Yeah.
yeah, he had actually Queen One, and still to this day, I know there's Queen's Greatest Hits One on vinyl in the house, and
Yeah.
I think there's Queen One in vinyl. But it was so nice to listen, like with Seven Seas of Rye, where you hear it on Queen One, and then you hear that progression to Queen Two, where you kind of get to more of the what we would know today.
They were
And
going to
it's
start the
just,
album. They were actually going to end Queen 1 with the instrumental and start Queen 2 with the finished product.
yeah,
But they had
and
Procession recorded. So, yeah.
mm, and it's just such a it's a fascinating way. And then when you
Yeah.
go on and you hear, the day at the races, and
Yeah.
you know a night at the opera, and you kind of like there's such a story progression
There is.
without actually having to say, okay, fans, we're having a progression. You just it's built on your own kind of personal,
Yeah.
understanding of it, and and it's just it's really nice to hear, and you can kind of, you feel their passion but also your own when you're listening to stuff, and,
That's it. It's
I've
personal
always
to
loved that.
yourself. Everyone's Queen experience is personal to them. Do you have Sheer Heart
Very.
Attack, the album?
I do, yeah.
So that's the one Brighton Rock starts off and then Killer Queen.
Yeah,
So if you listen
that's
to
right,
Seven
yeah.
Seas of Rye, you hear them at the end, they hear him singing, oh, I do like to be
I
beside the
do like to be
seaside.
beside, and then yeah,
Brighton Rock, it starts with a guy so it's twisting that,
yeah.
So
And that's
that's
what I mean, like,
I love that.
yeah, just so subtle, and just things that that you wouldn't expect to pick up,
No,
and you do. So that was always something I loved about it. And yeah, I don't think there will ever be a time in my life where I will not Queen will not be a part of,
and
my.
with that in mind, are there any Queen lyrics that you would say speak to you for maybe a time in your life? Is there any Queen lyric that jumps out to me and kind of go, I love that lyric because it reminds me of this, that, or the other thing? Or is there a song that you kind of go, yeah, that's my go-to? I think we spoke about it earlier
It
on,
would,
but is there a lyric, any lyric in there that,
yeah. There's the one lyric that I always came back to, and I know it is, for me, it transcends all songs. The Show Must Go On for me will always be my, top tier, one of the greatest songs I've ever listened to. And it was always as a child, because like I was into acting a lot and I was doing a lot. But again, you get to a point where you start to kind of become the act and not yourself.
yeah,
And I always came back to that. My makeup maybe, fading, but my smile still stays on.
that's good.
And I always came back to that, and it always resonated with me. And I think that's one of the reasons that song was so huge
Yeah,
for me, because I always, whenever I was kind of struggling with almost not being there, like almost just being a kind of a facade of
Yeah.
something that I wasn't, that always kind of brought me back, kind of remembering,
No matter what's going on, the smile is always there. Well,
exactly,
that's true. I mean,
exactly.
like you are always like you're always a very happy person, you know. So
Happy
you're
go lucky,
happy
yeah.
go lucky, yeah. So that's true
Mm.
of you anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was always a huge part of me, was that a lot of, how I've kind of grown up has been, listening to Queen songs, and kind of just having them help me get through my life. Like, I went
Yeah.
through a phase where I did nothing but listen to Innuendo, and just it
A
kind of,
fantastic album.
to yeah, just to
Yeah.
that theatricality, it
Mm.
just kind of it kind of brought that bit more out of me. And it just, it's such a strange thing to be able to say that, like, again, people you've never met have such a huge
Yeah.
influence on you.
Yeah.
But very much like all of my childhood has, and I go through phases with music where I want to listen to, and if I get into something, I'll stay listening to it. But Queen have been that one, outside of the box, where if that comes on, like if I have my iPod or whatever on,
Yeah.
and I'm playing it in the car, and I'll be skipping through songs going, yeah, I'm not in the mood for that, I'm not in the mood. A Queen song comes on, I'm listening to it. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
you know, um,
Changes the mood straight away. It kind of brings you into something
oh,
else.
big time, big time. And a bit like you with Radio Gaga, like Radio Gaga for me is one of those songs, like I will actually, I halfway through Radio Gaga, I'll feel myself tearing up. Because again, it brings me back to a child, being a
Yeah.
child. Because again, when I got sad days, like, and this is another childhood memory, like, of listening to that song in my bedroom, and my dog as a child, Jessie, she was big, she was on station. I can't remember what she
Yeah.
was, or sheepdog or something. Anyway,
Yes.
but she's big black furry dog. But she used to come in and she'd know straight away that I wasn't in a good mood, or I was sad,
Empathic
or
dog.
something
Yeah.
was happening. Yeah, exactly. And she'd sit with me and we'd be listening to that song. And even when I hear it now, it's such a, like, it's not just like a lot of the songs today where we're playing a song and it's
That's
a catchy tune.
it's
There
timeless.
was so,
Timeless writing. It's
yeah,
timeless melody. Yeah.
so much depth. And even
Yeah.
if you take the lyrics out of it and just listen to
True.
that, that do-do-do-do-do-do,
Yeah.
that beat, and it's just so empowering, or so, pulsing
It's
through you.
driving. I think that the driving
Yeah,
force of
that's
that
it.
that is, and Breakthrough has that as well. I mean that train,
Exactly.
So Queen knew how to actually keep a beat going, you know.
Oh, big time.
Yeah,
Big
and
time.
that's what I like, because as you said, they're not just songs. There's something more there, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I know Roger, his son, I think he said something like Radio Caca, which basically in French
Yeah,
means
that was it.
not a great thing, but
Thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
And again,
that's
I
where it
never
came
knew
from.
that as a
And
kid.
if you listen to it, actually, the word caca is in there. If you listen very closely, it's still
Mm,
in there. So Roger
it's
decided
still
to have
in there.
a little wry vocal in there somewhere, kind of
Yeah.
bring us back to that. Have you ever introduced anyone to Queen?
My wife, Steph, in fairness, now Steph did not, Steph wouldn't have been Queen anything.
Yeah.
And I started trying to play the songs for her, and I ended up, we watched the movie. Now, look, obviously we watched the movie because, and I've told you this before, but just for people listening
Yeah.
too, they did a competition that basically you would
Yes.
sing a piece of
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody and send it
You're
in.
in the movie.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
I got the thing to say,
Well done.
your audio was recorded into the movie.
Excellent.
So I think she wanted to see it just for that.
Yeah.
But again, like, what actually got her was Live Aid. When she saw Live Aid and that set at Live Aid, she was enamored. She
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Do
How
you
could
know?
you
And
not be?
and
Yeah.
again, exactly that
Yeah.
presence, and
A presence.
just to have that kind of,
There's a
and
great
I
piece of footage on Live Aid of Freddie rounding up the very last song, the very last chord of "We Are the Champions," and they had the traffic light
yeah,
system. Green means you're okay, amber means you're nearly on
yeah,
cutoff time, and on red the microphones were going dead. And Freddie
God,
does
yeah,
that,
and Roger hits the drums and the light goes on red because they had rehearsed so well that they exactly hit the time that they were allotted that Live Aid. So I mean, that's perfection.
Yeah. So yeah, there was that one. Like the funny thing is, when I was actually a kid in school, when we used to go on bus journeys, and for like if we were going to because I was on the student council stuff, so we'd go to bits with that as well. And the lads used to like I'd have the the headphones up very loud, and I know one of the guys was like, "What are you listening to?" And I was like, "Oh, it's like I Want It All by Queen." And he was like, "Oh, I've never heard it," so I put it on. He go, "Wow, that is amazing," So probably a few people over my time. But again, like I don't remember who it was, but I remember when I was a kid, I showed it to someone and they went, "That was cool." Was the start of Wembley '86, where it's One Vision, but it's the kind of the
and the crowd coming in
and they're in the chopper, they're coming through with the chopper. And I showed someone that and they went, "Now that's a cool way to start
it's a great entrance, a fantastic entrance."
And so there's kind of been a few people, but again, I've met a few people. Like one of my mates now, Fran is his name. I think you might have met him
met Fran,
at our wedding. Yeah, he's a massive Queen fan, and we've I've kind of learned bits from him as well, and because he would have been similar age to yourself. So again, his kind of childhood, I suppose, what he grew up with and the songs he grew up with, that were important to him, and I suppose the veritable difference. And I think the one thing, this is kind of going to lead into another little thing, but the one thing I found very kind of interesting in terms of, say, yourself and Fran compared to myself being a little bit younger, we don't tend to actually realize that there is two massively separate eras of Queen, like the young era and then the kind of the later era where it changed a bit. And I came into it in the later era with a lot of the songs like I Wanna Break Free and Show Must Go On and all that kind of stuff. But he would have been, and probably the same with yourselves, it would have been more the kind of the Bohemian Rhapsody era and that kind of thing. And it's amazing to hear, because the one thing I'd said, and I don't think I said this to you, but I did say it to Fran, was like the movie even, I learned some things from the movie that I kind of went, wow, like I had never heard Keep Yourself Alive before, or actually I'm in love with my car.
Right.
So to actually hear those two songs, and now one of my regular go-tos is Keep Yourself Alive. Because it's a fabulous song.
It is.
And I'd never heard it before. So
have you heard the re-release on Queen 1, the new re-release that was released in October last year or the year before?
No.
I think it was October year before, actually, or last year, I can't remember. So basically, they were never happy with the sound. Trident Studios, the drum sound was very flat. So Brian and Roger decided that they would actually remaster basically the tracks. So what they wanted to do was create the album they always wanted to create. And I believe they're actually working on Queen 2 now, from something I've seen on Brian's Instagram. I'm nearly sure they're working on it. And obviously then in October this year is the 50th anniversary of Bohemian Rhapsody and Night of the Opera, and they're getting reissued as well. So lots of stuff coming on. Again, if you have the albums, you might not buy them, but you are right. I mean, for me, the early era is preferable because Freddie played piano more. There's a lot more piano songs in the pre-80 songs than there are afterwards. Obviously, they went very synthy, and that was because Freddie wanted to prance around on stage in front of everyone. He didn't want to be playing piano on the tours. But if you look at the early shows like Montreal and all those in the 81, they're in Canada, they recorded a really good video there. Originally it was called We Were Rocky, but it was re-edited and placed as Queen Rocks Montreal. So he plays piano an awful lot on that album. On that tour, sorry. After that he kind of didn't play as much piano. So therefore I'm more leaning towards the 70s era because of that, But again, that's nice about Queen. They have something to suit everybody.
Exactly. And I suppose for me, I suppose when you have kind of been alive for both eras, you've had a straight progression, whereas I'm still learning new things,
Yeah.
going back and back, and
Yeah.
sometimes I think sometimes it's sad because you would have loved to have been there all the
That's
way
the
through,
thing.
but
That's the killer.
sometimes
Yeah.
it's nice. It's
Yeah.
nice just to kind of go, I did not know that, or
Yeah.
that's something I've never heard, just to
Yeah.
have that you constantly have a relationship with with the music.
Even though it's
Um,
gone, you still have that learning process that you can kind of go, oh,
exactly.
I didn't hear that before. I never knew that about that song. Or yeah.
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 But on this, I'm going to ask you a question now,
Okay.
and you might ask me this later. It might be in some of the questions you asked. But if you were stranded on a desert island
Ooh.
and you could only pick one Queen album to take with you, and it would be the only music you could listen to, what one would you pick?
Yeah. You see, Queen 2 was my first album. That was the album that I kind of, when I heard it first, was wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I probably would go Queen 2. There's so much on that album that I love,
It's such a
And
good
the thing that
album.
blew me away was the fact that Procession led into the next song, and that led on to the following song that led on, I think it was Procession into White Queen in, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I haven't played it in a few weeks because I've been on holidays. But yeah, I mean, the album just seemed to flow, and I've never heard that merging before, 4 songs merging into one. So that the way that just comes along was beautiful. So yeah, to me, Queen 2 would be, and if I was going to cheat, I might say Queen's Greatest Hits 3, which is a huge compendium.
It's a huge compilation of everything, yeah. But no, we're not going that way.
Yeah.
But it's funny you actually mentioned that with the going into songs, because it again, I don't think people realize how influential Queen were in certain ways. Because like if you take Eminem, his latest album, like the whole advice of that was, you cannot listen to it out of order. You have to listen to it in order because it's a whole story.
Okay.
Whereas, that's not something that was done back then. Whereas you look at it and you go, Queen, like, although you probably wouldn't do it, that's the way it should have been done. It was, every album had that progressional story that you could go through. And
unfortunately, with Spotify, it ruins that, because you can't now listen to Queen 2 on shuffle, because it makes no sense. It's no sense, because you hear the And they kind of did it in Night of the Opera as well, because some of the bits of leading into some of the songs, they kind of have like coming into Prophet Song, for example. There's some stuff there, and also Love of My Life before that. There's a small bit of stuff going on there as well. That when you hear them on shuffle, they don't seem to link up correctly. So there's a few things there, of course, that probably don't make sense in the modern world.
But if you're listening to the album as an album, and
it's true.
It does. Yeah. And I think that's why, for me, if you were going to ask me the same question, even though it wouldn't have my favorite Queen song on it, it would have to be A Kind of Magic. There's just something about that album. The Kind of Magic album. It just has such a lovely progression, and it just, you kind of listen to it and you just kind of you get that bit of wonder. It has that kind of magical essence, and it will always be my go-to album. Even, and it's just such an irony that, like, if you ask someone what their favorite Queen song is and then go, well, actually the album that I would bring to a desert island doesn't include that. So yeah, it's a strange one.
Well, I mean, look, that's the thing, it's all personal, and really, I want to thank you very much for coming on the podcast for a start. And your answers were interesting because they are different than anybody else. That's the nice thing. This podcast, we're interviewing people who are Queen fans. It's run by a Queen fan, interviewing a Queen fan, and it's just a bonus for me that a friend will come on and do the very first podcast. Thank you very much, Greg, for coming on. Before we go, we have to do the very special 10 questions that are asked. You might realize that these are actually on the end of the Actor Studio. So if you're familiar with the Actor Studio, which is a program from, I think, the early 2000s, where actors were interviewed in New York. I think it was one of the major theaters or one major schools of acting. So the 10 questions, I think you're familiar with them, are you?
I am.
You are, because of course. Well, for those who don't know, Greg is actually an actor. Greg, you have been in many programs, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been an extra in a couple of programs.
Yeah.
Generally, a lot of musical work. So a lot of that over the years, and
so acting is a passion of yours anyway. So you
100%.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, and the Actor Studio is something that I watch religiously. So
Brilliant.
well used to it by now.
Excellent.
Always something I wanted to actually have someone ask me these questions. So this is a bit of a buzzer for me.
Okay, so what's your favorite word?
Hang on, what's my favorite word? I'd actually forgotten about this one.
Go back to it.
Yeah, come back to that one.
Okay, your least favorite word?
Moist.
Oh, very good. What turns you on?
Food.
What turns you off?
Horrible people.
Yeah. Okay, get that one. What sound or noise do you love?
This one needs a bit of explaining. My favorite sound is actually, it sounds like a baby crying, but it could also be mistaken as a very, very wild fart. So it will be.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, nails on a chalkboard.
Okay, right, yeah. Your favorite curse word?
Douchebag.
Interesting. At least one of the censors that went out anyway. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Chef.
Nice. What profession would you not like to do?
Bin man.
If you were stranded on a desert island with a Queen album, what would you take? I think we already know that in the Kind of Magic, correct?
Kind of Magic, yep.
Excellent. And finally, not finally, go back to the first one, which is, what is your favorite word?
Okay, so my favorite word would have to be, I think in my, considering my love of Transformers, it would be transform.
Nice, because that's a nice thing to obviously transform yourself into something better.
Exactly.
Finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
It's about time. Where's my cupcake?
Well, with that, we'd like to thank very much Greg Porter for coming on and doing the very, very first Killer Queen podcast here on Shane's Queenside. Thank you very much, Greg. Fantastic to have you on. Really, really interesting answers. And it's nice because you're giving answers who, like, I've heard many, many different Queen podcasts. And Kind of Magic is an album that doesn't really get favorable reviews.
No.
But it's nice to see that from a fan's perspective, not professionals, because that's the problem with all these podcasts. They're always interviewing professionals or musicians or that sort of thing. So from a fan's perspective, it's nice to hear that A Kind of Magic is getting some love.
Love, yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, definitely. And I think it's very underrated. Very underrated. But again, there's some really nice tracks. There's some kind of, it has a bit of love there.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say thanks so much as well. I mean, I could stay talking for hours and hours. Because there's so much.
There is so much to do, but I mean, unfortunately, we are limited with time and lengths and so on. But thank you very, very much. Like, it was a pleasure doing this for the first time, and thank you very much for coming on. And I wish you the very, very best for your week. And
cheers.
I'm sure we'll catch up sometime soon.
We shall indeed.
Brilliant. Thanks, Greg.
Cheers.
All right.
Cheers. Thanks.
See you then. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So thank you very much for tuning in to the Queen Fan Podcast here on Shane's Queenside, Killer Queen Conversations. We hope to see you again very soon. And we would like to thank our guest this week for joining us. Join us again next week for more great conversations about Queen, their music, and what it means to be a Queen fan. See you again very soon. My name is Shane McDonald, and I hope you have a great day.
Killer Queen Conversation.